This is the final test. This is the test of all tests. And if you come through this one, God said, I swear I'm going to bless you. Ladies and gentlemen, God is not going to give His greatest blessings to novices. We must understand that before God will release greatness into our lives, you will be tested. You will be tried. You will go through trial after trial, level after level of testing. And just when you think you have arrived, God will allow the test of all tests. The test of a lifetime. Abraham's greatest test. Don't be disturbed if you're going through fiery trials. Don't be disturbed if you find yourself being tested over and over and over and knowing their promises and not yet receiving the fulfillment of those promises. What's wrong? What have I done? Nothing. You're right where God wants you to be. And you must pass this last test. I'm not saying that when you pass this one, you'll never be tested again. But sometimes there are many tests and baby tests that lead up to the big test. That's why the Bible said, and after these things, what things? All the tests that I just listed, then came the biggie. And I heard the Lord say, the one that many of you, thousands of you, are at a place, a crossroad in your life that you need to understand where you are. If you pass this test, Abraham, it's such a major deal that you will become the human instrumentality through which the Messiah will come into this earth. You will be the one that I will use to bring my son Jesus Christ into this earth. I'm going to use God's seed, but I'm going to use a human being. I'm going to use a people called Israel. I'm going to use a nation, and it will come out of the result of you passing this test. Ladies and gentlemen, we need to reconsider the caliber of our calling. What God has His hand on you and your family and your church to do is not just a small thing, not just an insignificant thing, but this is a big one. And Abraham had to pass this last test. I've heard people preach this story different ways, and I've heard preachers preach that when Abraham woke up that morning knowing that he had to climb that mountain and offer his son as a human sacrifice, that he got up and he was probably weeping and he was probably so sad and he was dreading it. And he probably said, son, this is awful, this is terrible, and probably was having to drag him up that mountain. But that is not what I believe the scene was like. First of all, the Bible said that he rose up early, signifying that he was excited. This is the day the Lord has made. I believe his toes were wiggling under that tent as soon as the sun came up. There was something in his spirit that said, yes, I'm being tested. Yes, I'm being tried. But it's for a significant reason, and I've got to pass this test. Because if I pass this test, God said, I swear I'll bless you. I could see him as he gets up. And he almost joyfully decides to offer God the sacrifice. See, it should be the joy of our life to serve God. It should be the joy of our life to sacrifice to God. It should be the joy of our life to obey God. We need to change our attitude about commitment and consecration and sacrifice to God. It's not a depressing and defeating feel that we should have when we're going through trials. As a matter of fact, I believe that we need to get that understanding that when God told Abraham, take your son, your only son, and offer him as a sacrifice to me, there was much more to it than just Abraham proving to God that he loved God more than he loved his son. There was so much more to this story than just Abraham proving that he was in love more with the giver than he was the gift. Because here's what I found out. According to history, it was a common everyday occurrence in the heathen religions of that day where Abraham lived to offer their firstborn sons to idol, fake, false gods in worship. They did it daily. They offered their sons without hesitancy. They did it without drawing back. And year after year after year, Jehovah watched as those heathens that worshiped fake gods and false gods would take their sons that were firstborn and throw them into the river to sacrifice to the water god, throw them into the fire to sacrifice to their false gods, to the fire gods. They would routinely, without hesitation, offer their sons to their fake and false gods. And God said, Abraham, I want you to offer me your son. What God was really saying was he was saying, you know, Abraham, this is your last big test. Abraham, will you do for me what the heathen will do for his fake God? Abraham, will you offer to me what the heathen is offering to his God? Abraham, the day I see you matching the consecration of the heathens to their fake false gods, the obedience, the sacrifice, the loyalty that the heathens have to their gods, when I see you match your sacrifice to me, I swear I'll bless you, multiply you, and you'll charge the gates of hell and shake them off their hinges. We, ladies and gentlemen, are a people who know who God really is. We're not serving fake gods. We're not serving a false God. We are serving the only true and wise and living God, and His name is, shout it, Jesus. Is it possible that we who know Him most do the least for Him? We brag about, we know the only true God, Jesus. We brag about, we don't serve Buddha, he's dead. Muhammad, he's dead. We don't serve the things of this world. They pass away. Those idols of pleasure, those false gods of the pleasure, the God of pleasure, the God of entertainment, all those things that people, the God of material wealth. We don't serve those gods. But could it be that when God wants to compare how much we really love Him, He doesn't compare our church with other churches. He doesn't come in and say, whoo, boy, this church is really on fire, and compared to the dead church across town, this one's really got the victory. That's how we judge and compare our spirituality, with how fired up our church is compared to the dead church. But can I tell you how God really compares us? God goes out and looks at the world. He looks at the lost. He looks at the sinners. He looks at the heathens. And He sees how they give themselves completely to their gods of pleasure. Their gods of materialism. Their gods of whatever it is that they get excited about. And He says, if I could find that kind of commitment and loyalty and consecration in my house that they have for those fake gods. God is asking tonight, will you do for me what the drug addict will do for his God? Will you do for me what the alcoholic will do for his God? Will you